Welcome back students to another English class. Today we'll be seeing the poem Night of the Scorpion by Nissim Ezekiel. This is a lesson from Standard 10 English. Let's get on with the lesson. Let us know a little bit more about the poet Nissim Ezekiel. Nissim Ezekiel was an Indian Jewish poet, actor, playwright, editor and art critic. He was born on 16th December 1924 in Mumbai in Maharashtra. The Ezekiels belonged to Mumbai's Marathi-speaking Jewish community known as the Bene Israel. In 1947, Ezekiel earned a BA in literature from Wilson College, Mumbai, and in 1947-48 he taught English literature and published literary articles. He later went to London, where he worked in India and also abroad as a university professor. He has written a number of volumes of poetry and plays. His poems have also been published in many well-known magazines. Nissim Ezekiel is often considered the father of modern Indian English poetry by many critics. He was honored with the Padma Shri Award by the President of India in 1988 and the Sahitya Akademi Cultural Award in 1983. He edited an official organ called as the Indian Pen All India Centre in Mumbai and which encouraged poets and writers. This illustrious personality died after a prolonged battle with Alzheimer's in Mumbai on 9th January 2004 when he was aged 79. Let us now look at the poem in detail. The poem Night of the Scorpion is taken from Nissim Ezekiel's book of poems called The Exact Name. In the poem, the poet, who is the narrator, recalls the night that his mother was stung by a scorpion. The poem is in a highly narrative style, and it tells us how the situation affected the narrator as a child. Here the poet also explains the reactions of the family, his relatives and the neighbors towards the incident. Let us now start reading the poem. Night of the Scorpion. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with his poison, flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked walls, they searched for him. He was not found. They clicked their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. May he sit still, they said. May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight, they said. May your suffering decrease, the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. May the sum of all evil, balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good, become diminished by your pain. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition, they said, and they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the peace of understanding on each face. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb and hybrid. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. My mother only said, Thank God, the scorpion picked on me and spared my children. So here we come to the end of the poem. Now let's look at the poem stanza wise in detail. I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with his poison, flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. Let's look at the new word, diabolic, which means having the qualities of the devil or the wicked. Here we find that the poet remembers an incident from his childhood. He is reflecting and he remembers the night when his mother was stung by a scorpion. The scorpion had entered the house because of the continuous rain outside. For 10 hours it had rained, and hence the scorpion, to avoid the rain, had entered the house and had gone and crawled beneath a sack of rice and hid himself. And when the mother had come, the scorpion, out of its nature, had attacked the mother. The speaker specifically remembers this night due to this event. The way in which the mother is bitten is also shown in as a flash of diabolic tail. The poet manages to suggest that the scorpion is demonic with its diabolic tail and emphasizes its speed with the word flash. The scorpion then again flees the scene and thus risks the rain again. Let's go ahead with the poem. The peasants came like swarms of flies and buzzed the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. With candles and with lanterns, throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked walls, they searched for him. He was not found. They clicked their tongues. With every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in mother's blood, they said. New words, buzzed. Here it means the noise caused because of the continuous chanting of the villagers. Paralyze, here it means to stop an activity. Now here we find that how, hearing about the incident, the entire village rushed to the poet's house. Here it shows us an image of a very close-knit and religious village people who rush to the poet's house when they are in need, and immediately they started buzzing the name of God. It also shows us that how much belief they have on God. So, however, we find that the poet is not happy with them, and he compares the villagers to a swarm of flies, and he calls that they buzz the name of God 100 times to paralyze the evil one. Here again we find that the poet is not very happy with these people coming, as the mother is in pain there and all of them have entered the house and they are chanting the name of God. So it is more irritating for the poet. But we find the efforts that the villagers are putting in to help the mother. They again start searching for the scorpion, because according to their belief, the villagers believe that if they search the scorpion and they find him and they kill him, that will stop the pain that the mother is going through. They believed that every movement that the scorpion made, his poison moved in the mother's blood more. So if they would catch the scorpion and kill it or make it stop moving, then the poison would not move that fast in the mother's blood. According to him, the villagers began searching for the scorpion, and their shadows themselves seemed to be like giant scorpions on the mud-baked walls. So here again he is comparing the shadows of the villagers who are searching for the scorpion to giant scorpion shadows. And they wanted the effect of the poison to be controlled so that they could help the mother get rid of the pain. Let's move ahead. They said, "May the sins of your previous birth be burned away tonight," they said. May your suffering decrease the misfortunes of your next birth, they said. May the sum of all evil balanced in this unreal world against the sum of good become diminished by your pain. May the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition, they said, and they sat around on the floor with my mother in the center, the piece of understanding on each face. The new word here, diminished, which means to lessen or reduce. As the villagers had failed in their attempts to find the scorpion, they began giving their own interpretation to the biting of the scorpion. Some of them said that the mother's sins which she had committed in the previous birth would be forgiven because of the pain that she was going through. The others assumed that she would die and said that the pain that she was suffering from would decrease the troubles in her next birth. Some others put forth the theory that the good deeds that she has done would balance against the bad deeds because of the bite of the scorpion, the trouble that she was going through because of the bite of the scorpion. So, the good deeds would overcome all the bad deeds because of the pain. Some others said that the poison that was there in her blood would purify her flesh of desire. Whatever worldly desire she had, it would purify her. It would remove the spirit of ambition from her and make her become like a saint. And as they were talking all of this, they were sitting around her and they were talking all of this and they were wishing good for her, while on the floor the mother lay and was being tormented by the tremendous pain, and all the villagers around her realized the pain she was going through, and that is why they all had the peace of understanding on their faces. Let's go ahead with the poem. More candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects, and the endless rain. My mother twisted through and through, groaning on a mat. My father, skeptic, rationalist, trying every curse and blessing, powder, mixture, herb, and hybrid. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and put a match to it. I watched the flame feeding on my mother. I watched the holy man perform his rites to tame the poison with an incantation. After 20 hours, it lost its sting. My mother only said, "Thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children." Let's look at the new words. Groaning, which means a moaning sound conveying pain or grief. Rationalist, a person who believes in reason and knowledge than opinion and belief. Incantation is the chanting of words claiming to have magical power. Now, here we find that more and more villagers came and added to the number of the already gathered people there. So, more and more people came with candles and lanterns. However, amidst all this, the mother was twisting through and through. That is, she was crying and she was rolling on the mat because of the severe pain, but nobody could do anything about it. The father, who has always been a skeptic, a rationalist, he never believed on superstitions. But here we find even he leaves no stone unturned to cure her. He uses powder, mixture, herb, and hybrid, and he is trying all the knowledge that he has, all the help, anything that he has read anywhere. He is trying to use all of that to help her recover from the pain. He even poured a little paraffin upon the bitten toe and then fired it up, thinking that the fire will burn the poison off. So, all are doing all that they can, while the flames of fire burning on the skin of the mother are watched by the poet. The poet is also watching the mother writhing in pain there. The poet watches the holy man of the village perform his rites, perform his traditional rituals to tame the poison with an incantation. Again, we come to know of the belief that they think that they could tame the poison, they could control the poison with a chanting of a particular mantra. The phrase again refers to the superstitious people of the village who believe that irrational measures may cure a person. However, his mother ultimately recovers from the poison after 20 hours. And even after recovering from the poison, the mother's only words were, "Thank God the scorpion picked on me and spared my children." This last line is quite emotional and heart touching. It reflects the motherhood of a lady. Even in such a condition, the mother remains more concerned about the safety and health of her children and thanks God that God spared her children. With this, we come to the end of the poem. Let us look at few other things related to the poem. Let us see the poetical style that the poet has used. The Night of the Scorpion is a free verse poem which has 8 stanzas and a total of 47 lines. There is, however, no set rhyme scheme and the meter is mixed, which reflects the unusual subject matter and the unfamiliar nature of the incident. The poet has used many figures of speech to increase the beauty of the poem. Some of them are metaphor, personification, simile, imagery, hyperbole, irony, and alliteration. Let us look at each one in detail. Metaphor. A metaphor is a hidden comparison between two things which possess at least any one idea common to each other. The things may be completely different from each other but would have at least one characteristic in common to them. Examples of metaphor from the poem are the evil one. Here, the scorpion is indirectly compared to the evil one because of the diabolic nature, because of the wicked nature that the scorpion has. The second example is giant scorpion shadows. Here we find that it is actually the villagers who are searching for the scorpion who are creating these giant scorpion shadows. So here the villagers the shadow of the villagers is actually compared to the scorpion's shadows. The next figure of speech is personification. Personification is the representation of things in human qualities or nature in abstract terms. Examples of personification from the poem are diabolic tale. Here the tale is given the quality of being diabolic or evil or wicked. Second, he risked the rain again. Here the scorpion is seen as a risk taker. Here the quality of taking risks is given to the scorpion. Hence it is also a personification. Third, flame feeding. Now here the quality of feeding is given to the flame. Hence all these three are examples of personification. Moving on to the next figure of speech, which is simile. Simile is a direct comparison between two things. It compares two things by using as or like. And examples of simile from the poem is swarms of flies. Here we find that the villagers are compared to swarms of flies in the poem. Imagery. Imagery is a literary device which includes languages which are descriptive. Imagery is drawn upon the 5 senses, which consist of taste, smell, touch, sight, and sound. It helps in better imaginings of the artist's world in his work. Examples of imagery from the poem are buzzed. Here the word buzzed shows sound imagery. Shadows. Here this word creates a visual imagery. They clicked their tongues. The word clicked here shows sound imagery. More candles and lanterns. With candles and lanterns, again, it creates more of a smell imagery where you can smell the heat or smell the wax melting or the lantern, the light of the lantern. So here it creates a smell imagery. The next figure of speech is hyperbole. Hyperbole is an exaggerated statement which is not meant to be taken literally. An example of hyperbole from the poem is 100 times, where the statement is exaggerated. Nobody has counted whether it is 100 times, so it is a generalization and an exaggeration. Moving on to the next figure of speech, which is irony. The irony is a statement which has the meaning opposite to what is literally said. This creates humor. Examples of irony: the piece of understanding on each face. Now, when we look at the situation that was going there, that the mother was not was being tormented with pain, it is but obvious that everybody around would be very tensed. They would have a tensed feeling on their faces. But here the poet has used the word a piece of understanding to actually say that they were not having the piece of understanding. They were all very tensed. But he has said the complete opposite when he means the other. Similarly, the next example, skeptic and rationalist. Here the poet's father is called as a skeptic or a rationalist, a free thinker, a logical thinker, whereas here we find that in the poem he has used every hybrid, every blessing, every curse. He has actually taken a lot of help, or he has done a lot of things based on superstitious beliefs, whereas the poet is calling him as a skeptic and a rationalist. So here again we find that the meaning opposite to what is said over here. Hence both these examples are of irony. The next figure of speech is alliteration. When sounds are repeated in a sentence, we say it is alliteration. Example: parting with his poison. Here we find the sound of the letter P is repeated. Second, he risked the rain again. Here we find the sound of the letter R is repeated. Poison, purify. Here the sound of the letter P is repeated. Herb, hybrid. Here the sound of the letter H is repeated. Flame, feeding. Here the sound of the letter F is repeated. Hence it is alliteration. Moving on to the next one, repetition. When words or a particular word is repeated in a sentence, we say it is repetition. Example: more candles, more lanterns, more neighbors, more insects. Here we find the letter more is repeated to create a greater impact, and hence this figure of speech is called as repetition. Let's look at a few evaluation questions. First one, what does the phrase to paralyze the evil mean in stanza 3? The phrase to paralyze the evil means to paralyze the evil one, that is the scorpion. So here, to stop the activities of the scorpion. The phrase to paralyze the evil means to stop the activities of the scorpion. Next, who are they in stanza 4? Here the word they refers to the villagers. Whom does the word him refer to in line number 3? Here the word him refers to the scorpion. Why does the poem begin with the poets remembering the night? Children, for this answer you have to realize that how strong an impact has the particular incident done in the mind of the poet, that the poet cannot forget this particular incident, and so it begins with the poet telling us that this is an incident that has happened in his childhood. Next, what forced the scorpion to take shelter in the poet's house? Now we know the reason why the scorpion had come. Because of the constant rain outside, it had come to seek shelter in the dry inside of the poet's house. When did the mother find relief? We know that after 20 hours after the scorpion had bit her, after going through endless pain and torment because of the sting of the scorpion, the mother found relief. And you have to write an appreciation of the poem in a paragraph format. Children, you have already been uh, taught how that you have to follow the proper format. You have to give the poet's name, a little one or two sentences, introductory sentences about the poem, and then you have to write a little bit about the poet, also one sentence, and then we find you can talk about the poetic style, the poetic figures of speech, and then you can talk about the message of the poet. That's how you write the appreciation of the poem in a paragraph format. I hope you have understood the poem, students. Uh, we'll be back again with another lesson. Till then, happy learning.